Hey everyone, welcome to the Vegas Knows podcast presented by BuckeyeScoop.com. We took a kind of an off-season hiatus, but we are going to be back doing this every week here. I'm Marc Givler, joined by Bill Greene as always. Again, we're going to be firing this back up, and I think what we'll do is we'll do a weekly show during college football season, and then I want to get this more regular in the off season as well because there's still things we can talk about. So I think we're gonna make it more of a regular off season show as well, maybe like a bi-weekly or at least once a month, so that we have there's futures, there's golf, there's basketball, there's a million things we can kind of go through. But I'm happy to kind of be back doing this on a week to week basis now that college football and the NFL are kicking back off here soon. This first episode of the season, we're going to go through kind of conference by conference. We're going to talk about, obviously, who we like to win the conference, but there may be some value plays in some of these conferences that we like as well. That may not be our favorite to win the conference, but we like the value they're getting in terms of futures. And we're going to look at some team win totals. This is all going to be college football in this episode. Team win totals for the season, and who knows, maybe we'll wrap up with some Heisman talk or something like that. But we're gonna stick to some NCAA football futures here, and we'll be back next week. We'll get to the NFL stuff, and we'll get to the week one college lines and things like that. But I'm gonna go futures here. To start, we're going to start with the ACC. Bill, first of all, who do you like in the ACC? I think it's probably an easy question, but, is there any value or some team win totals you see in the ACC that you like?
Yeah, I think Clemson's is the cream. I mean, and that's, not exactly going out on a limb or anything there. They've got that whole defense back for the most part. I think DJ Uiagalelei is going to be amazing. They got championship pedigree coaching. So they're cut above, just like Ohio State is in the Big Ten. What I do like in the ACC is I really like Boston College. I loved what Jeff Hafley did last year, first year in with COVID, trying to install a new system, and they were really good. Now their win total this year is 7, which is kind of high. So they're going to have to win 8 games for me to get the money. And I'm betting them over that 7. I think it's pretty close, like 7 or 8 is probably where I see them. I don't see any way that they go 6-6 and I lose. If you look at that schedule and you see Colgate, UMass, Temple, Syracuse, well, I got 4 in the hopper right now. And then I got to find 3 to 4 more, 3 to get my money back, 4 to win the money. Louisville, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Wake Forest. Those are all games they're going to be favored in. Then you got Missouri, NC State. They could win that. So I'm feeling good that Hafley brings them in with 8 wins. The opposite of that to me is Virginia Tech, that I think they're one of the most overrated teams in the country. Their win total is actually 7.5, which means they got to go 8-4 to beat you. Well, I'm looking at, so I need 5 losses out of them to get the money. And I'm looking at Carolina, West Virginia, Notre Dame, Pitt, Boston College, Miami, Virginia. I don't see any way this team gets through that at 8-4. I think they're a sub 500 team. So they got to win 8 to beat me. I don't know that they're going to win 5 or 6. So those are the 2 kind of off the wall plays I like there. I kind of wanted to take Miami, but Miami's all dependent on De'Aaron King. Totally. Coaching won't matter. Nothing else is going to matter on that team. De'Aaron King being great, then they're really good. De'Aaron King is not De'Aaron King. They're not going to be very good. So that's kind of how I see the ACC.
Yeah, it's interesting. Clemson is such an overwhelming favorite. They're minus 600. So you got to put 600 down just to win 100 on Clemson winning the ACC. Look, I think it's highly unlikely that anyone other than Clemson wins the ACC, but there are a couple of value plays I think in there. North Carolina plus 625. So, you lay 10 to win 62.50. That to me has some value. I think if there's one team I look at, like who could beat Clemson, it's North Carolina to me. And if they can just beat Clemson, that could be enough to get it done. They may not, be in a situation where they lose multiple ACC games or something like that. So it's interesting to me. to see if maybe there's some value there. The other one I think, and this is the one I'm with you on, Boston College is right now, I'm seeing plus 4,000 to win the ACC.
Wow.
So, and I was told there'd be no math here, but what is it? That's 10 to win 400, right? I think if you put that,
yes.
$10 to win 400. I mean,
yeah,
that might be worth, that might be worth a small pizza or whatever. The price
they lined up and banged with Clemson last year.
Yep.
And I know Trevor Lawrence didn't play, DJ did, but DJ was really good in that game. He was the one who pulled the game out. So it wasn't like it was a 9-7 game. But the thing I saw was that they lined up and competed with Clemson. They lost a heartbreaker in the end. But from the time they kicked the ball off to the time the zeros hit the scoreboard, it was an even game. I mean, Clemson had to play their butts off to get the win there. That was not a mismatch in terms of line play, speed, stuff like that. So that's why I'm thinking I'm really high on Boston College. So yeah. So put $10 on Boston College to bring back 400. Sure. That's kind of what I like to call pizza money bets, that I do in golf with a first round leader. If you're going to bring back 30 or 40 to 1, it's worth a shot.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are two that kind of caught my attention. I'm with you on the Boston College over, and I had someone send me a future sheet. They were in Vegas last week. One of our site members was in Vegas last week, and he sent me the future sheets. And I'm sure it's not that way on the board now out there, but apparently Boston College's win total opened at 5.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, that can't be right. And I looked online and it's 7 now, obviously.
7 for me. I got 7
right. That's what it is. Online. Like, yeah, that's the only thing I've seen online this week. But you look at something like that, you're like, oh my goodness, had I only known that was a thing, that's the type of line that I think you go nuts on. But I'm with you. I like Boston College over 7. The one that I think is interesting, God, it feels insane to me that Wake Forest is also 7. It feels insane to me that Vegas has both of those teams as basically 7 and 5 teams. But, I looked at Wake Forest schedule. It is really easy. There's a couple of layups there in the non-league. The ACC obviously is not much of a gauntlet at this point. I still I'm going to take my chances that Wake Forest doesn't go 8-4 and beat me. And so I like Wake Forest under 7.
Okay.
I do that fully aware that, that this is hashtag Vegas knows right here, because that sounds almost too good to be true. So I'm expecting Wake Forest to now go 8-4 and probably win the last game of the season to do it. But that's that line, like I said, with Vegas, when it looks too good to be true, it normally is.
Usually is.
But I'm willing to be a sucker on that one. All right, let's move on down. We're going to just do the Power 5 here. If there's interest in like some of these non-Power 5s, we'll be happy to kind of do another show, maybe a non-Power 5 specific show. If anyone, gives us some feedback on that, but we're going to stick with Power 5 here for this episode. Big 12 is up next. It's not nearly as overwhelming. Like Clemson is crazy. I don't even know if I can remember. Yes. I mean, God, minus 600 for a favorite in a conference. I don't even know if I've seen that before. I mean, I can't even, maybe I'm about to look really dumb here, but I don't even, Alabama has Alabama ever been close to minus 600?
Not in the SEC.
Right.
No, they get challenged in that SEC. No way.
And like even Ohio State, I don't think's been that
it's a lot lower than Clemson's. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that's just kind of nutty. So this is a little more congested. Obviously, Oklahoma is a pretty good favorite in the Big 12. But Iowa State and Texas are in there. Bill, kind of how do you see the Big 12 playing out?
I have Oklahoma winning it, but that would be in pencil, not in pen, not in permanent marker. Iowa State has competed with Oklahoma from the day they hit that Matt Campbell showed up in Ames. They compete with Oklahoma. They split with them last year. They beat Texas. They can compete on that level. And this is Iowa State's, this is their best team maybe ever, And as I say that, their win total is 9.5. It used to be 9.5 for a decade. Used to be, you know, from like 1980 to 1990, they wouldn't win 9. And they might have the best quarterback in the conference in Brock Purdy. They got the best runner in the conference in Breece Hall. They've got one of the top O-lines in the conference. They're so darn well coached. It's unbelievable. And they've hung their hat on defense, you know, from the time Matt has got there. So when I look at and evaluating teams, I'm looking at coach, quarterback, defense, O-line, those 4 things. Iowa State checks all them off. So I say all that to say, how are they going to go 10-2? I mean, I just don't. Are they ready to take that leap? A 10-2 team to me is, you know, one of the top teams in the country, the schedule they run. You know, they have not been able to beat Iowa. That has been Matt's bugaboo. And if he loses to Iowa again, there is no way that they're going to win 10 games. So I'm taking Iowa State under. I hope I lose that bet. I want Matt to win. I want him to win big, family friend, all that. But, you know, I just don't think they're a 10, 11, 12 win team. I just don't. So I'm taking them under 9.5. You know, 9-3 is reason to break out champagne at Iowa State. 8-4, they're, you know, they go nuts. I just don't see it. I hope I'm wrong. I want to lose that one. You know, and that bet will probably come down to week 2 when they play Iowa. Mm-hmm. You know, they lose that one to Iowa again, like they have forever. There's no chance that they're gonna beat me on that. So I'm taking Iowa State under 9.5, and you know, kind of hoping I lose it. Maybe, I don't know, but I just don't believe that they're a 10-2 team.
Yeah, I don't really like the action here in the Big 12 on the conference champion stuff. I'm just never a guy who's going to put 200 to win 100 on a conference champion.
Right.
To me, that, I mean, if I'm gonna place a bet, I'd like to be happy when I win it. I mean, that's not gonna really excite me when I win that bet. It's gonna be more of a sense of relief. I have no desire to do that. Iowa State, I don't feel like at plus 300, I'm getting great value.
No.
You know, and even Texas at plus 575, I don't feel like I'm getting great value. And then after that, nobody else has a chance winning that league. So I'm going to stay away from the conference championship odds. I'm with you on Iowa State. It's not something I'm going to do personally, but I think that's probably the play. They just seem to always kind of drop an early game that really kind of would mess them up on an over under that high.
They lost to Louisiana last year.
Yeah, and so ironically, that's a good segue, because the one over under I actually I think I like is Texas at over 8.
Wow.
They open up with Louisiana, who's in the top 20, but Texas is actually a few point favorite. They're like they opened up. Now the line has come down quite a bit, I think, but they're still a pretty serious favorite there. Then they play Arkansas, they play Rice, they play Texas Tech, they play TCU. That's their first 5 games. Now we know that Texas has had their issues over the years. We know they lose to lesser talented teams all the time, but those are 5 games out the gate they should win. And even if they're 4-1, I think you're still in good shape after that. Then they play Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I don't see Baylor being much this year. Kansas is terrible. West Virginia's down. Kansas State's down. So they can lose to Oklahoma. They can lose to Oklahoma State. They can lose to Iowa State. And they can fall somewhere to like a TCU or at West Virginia. They can, you know, blow one of those or blow the opener against Louisiana, and you're still, you know, you're not going to lose your bet. So whereas I actually think they will beat one of Oklahoma State, Iowa State. They'll get one of them. So I actually like that Texas over 8 wins. So we'll see. I know, again, that's one of those that, you know, I think I'm probably looking too much at the roster and the talent versus maybe, you know, what's going on in that program, and just the coaching transition is going to be interesting and everything else. But I don't know. That to me was the value that I saw in the Big 12 from a betting perspective.
I looked at that, and I think, you know, Sark is going to turn Bijan Robinson into his Najee Harris. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they had the guy replace Sam Ehlinger last year, played in the bowl game and was really good. So they're going to score. Yeah. They're just going to give them up. You know, I think they're going to be in the old Big 12 when those games used to be 43-42. I think they're going to be in a lot of those games. So I looked at that, and I kind of saw them like almost right on the number for me. The other one I liked in that league, and I don't really like the team that much, but they're in all these close games all the time too, is Kansas State. Their under total was 5.5. I think they can win 6 games. I think Chris Klieman's a great coach. Now, last year they had all kind of COVID issues, and that skewed everything. The year before, they were darn good. They beat Oklahoma the year before, had a really good year. They got a ton of guys back. And I looked at that schedule where I got to get 6 wins somewhere. And I saw West Virginia, Southern Illinois, Nevada, and Stanford. And I'm thinking, well, you get 3 of those. And then, you got to get Texas Tech, TCU, you got to find 3 more. And I think Kleiman can coach his way to 3 more. I didn't love this one, but I like it. I like K-State to get to 6-6 or 7-5 and beat that 5.5 win total. So that was the only other thing I really looked at, in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 of their non-leagues are at home. They come out of the gate pretty soft. I don't know that Stanford's going to be much this year, but
I don't think they are.
Stanford, Nevada, Southern Illinois. It's for kind of like the schedule here. It's that second third of games. It's that middle, that games 4 through 6, where it's Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Iowa State. Can they get through that? And I'm not
one of them.
Can they steal one or just get through that without getting just blown out 3 straight weeks and like losing any confidence? So
I'm going to take a shot with that. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
Yeah, it's a good schedule, I think, for them. It definitely sets up to give them a shot. Okay, what do we got here next? We're on to the Big Ten. Okay, here we go again. Ohio State, a big favorite, no surprise there, -210. Yeah. Next is Wisconsin at +550. Then it's just a log jam. You got Penn State at +900, Iowa +1,000, Michigan, Nebraska +1,600. My goodness, Michigan and Nebraska are the same. That is that's something, and higher than Indiana and Minnesota, and much higher than Northwestern. So that's some interesting stuff there. Looking through these Big Ten championship odds or whatever. Bill, I mean, we always talk about Ohio State, of course, just because it's of interest to a lot of our listeners, but Buckeyes, slam dunk here, or, is there some value in maybe a Wisconsin or a Penn State?
I think it is a slam dunk. And I'm the one that has been writing since last year ended that they have question marks at quarterback. 2 new old linemen in starting, Harry Miller moving positions. The defense, is that back 7 going to be better? I don't know. So I did see a few chinks there, but my gosh, I think the Big Ten is so down. Penn State's not Penn State. Michigan's not Michigan. So I actually am taking Ohio State over 11. Because it's 11 and not 11.5, I could see myself either getting my money back or winning this thing. I don't see how they lose 2 games on this schedule. I just don't. And that's what it's going to take. And if they get through Minnesota, which, I mean, they can't beat Minnesota, then, the season's not going to be very good. And then get through Oregon, then how do they lose 2 after that? There's no way. So I took it. I didn't love it, but I just don't see them losing 2 games. And if they do lose that first one somewhere along the line, more than likely they're going to be heavy favorites the rest of the year. So you could actually take Penn State on the money line and try to get out of this wager and, put yourself in a position where you win 1, lose 1. So I took them, and didn't love it, but I liked it. The one I like the best is I love Wisconsin over 9.5. I think they could go undefeated. I think the schedule sets up so well for them. And at 9.5, I mean, they're going to have to lose 3 games to get my money. And I don't see it. I think they're going to beat Notre Dame. And I don't see who's going to beat them. I don't think Iowa's going to be that good. I think Iowa to beat them is going to have to make it a 17-16 game. I think Graham Mertz is going to be a lot better. And he was okay last year. He kind of took them. He's better than Jack Cohn, and this year he should be a lot better. That O-line is really good. They have the best defense in the Big Ten, bar none. Everybody back. So that was the one I liked the best in this conference. I like Wisconsin to win, get back to being Wisconsin and win 10, 11, maybe 12. So I just can't see this team going 9-3. So they're going to get my money.
Yeah, I looked at that as I looked at the plus 550 to win the league because I kind of think they're a pretty heavy favorite for me for the West. Now the wild, they call it the wild West because you never know. I mean, Minnesota, Iowa. I think Iowa feels pretty good about their team this year. You know, something weird could happen there, but if you're really strongly convicted that Wisconsin can just get to the Big Ten championship, even if they're playing Ohio State and if they're a 2-touchdown underdogs, you're still getting them basically plus 550 to upset Ohio State. That's not terrible. You know, and if you're an Ohio State fan, you may want to do that just for the emotional hedge, but
yeah, right. You win something.
Right. So, you know, it's something I looked at. I'm not going to do that. I think the total that I like Penn State under 8.5. I don't like their schedule. I think for them, you're coming out of the gate at Wisconsin.
You're right. You know,
you've got Auburn at home. That's a tough one. And that's early. Yeah, you're going to beat Villanova and Ball State at home. Then you got Indiana at home. Maybe you win that one in a revenge type of thing after the way that one ended last year, but that's not going to be an easy one. Then you go on the road to Iowa. I think they're probably going to be underdogs in that game. You know, then you're on the road at Ohio State. You've got Michigan in there, and then you've got, you know, a little bit of a sneaky schedule there at the end. Like Rutgers, to me, is actually a sneaky team this year. I can't even find their win total right now. I don't know if it's.
I got it.
What is it?
I got it at 4, and I took it. Now that
I'm totally taking it. I think Rutgers is a dark horse 6-6 bowl team. I really do.
I took the over 4 when I saw Temple, Syracuse, Delaware.
Yeah.
And then I'll take my chances with Maryland, Michigan State. You know, I saw 4 and I love it. I think Shiano's got them definitely going in the right direction. I think they're a 6-6 team. I think they're a bowl team. And since you brought that up, 4 was the number I saw and I took it.
If I can find it, if that gets posted at 4, I'm taking it. I mean, I was on Morning Scoop with Tom Moore last week, and he was asking me about like sleeper Big Ten teams. I said, if we're going way down the bottom of the barrel here, Rutgers has really worked the portal. He's recruiting better. The talent level's higher. The schedule sets up well. I could see them squeezing into a bowl game at 6-6. So if I can find 4, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
But I think Penn State just looks to me like a team that is probably going to go 8-4. And if they get a bad bounce or two, could easily go 7-5. I'm going to take the under on that.
I like that too. I saw it, and it just seems like they are not the program that they were a couple of years ago when, they used to line up with Ohio State, look them right in the eye, take that game to the very last play of the game, and they're not doing that now. They're not who they were, and I think it all started that day when James Franklin said that after they lost to Ohio State, he had a press conference, said, we're done being great. We want to go to being elite. Well, he was right. They were done being great. I think they have slipped back. They're not who they were. There was a time when, the Ohio State Penn State game was a marquee game. We had 3 or 4 years in a row where that game went to the final play. Well, it hasn't happened. It didn't happen last year, and I just don't. I think they've lost a little bit of who they were.
Yeah, I don't see the talent. They still have some good players, but there were a couple of years there, as you mentioned, not only were the games close, but if you lined up like the top 10 players on each team, Penn State's best players were right there with Ohio State's best players.
No doubt.
They had and it doesn't feel that way right now. So
no. They lined up with a lot of pros. Yeah. From McSorley and Saquon and the tight end, Fryermuth. They had dudes, man. And their defense was always, not so much superstars, but boy, they played it well. They played their system well. They didn't get beat deep. They were hard to run the ball on. They were just a tough out, for Ohio State. Ohio State could have lost 3 in a row to them. Wow. I don't think we're seeing that now. I think Penn State has dropped, Ohio State is elevated, and I think there's a gap there now.
That Auburn game, I mean, not to go too far off topic here, but that Auburn game on September 18th, that feels like about as enormous of a non-league September game as you can play. If they lose to Wisconsin in the opener, I mean, and then they go and they lose to Auburn, that could go off the rails.
It did last year for them.
Yeah. I mean, that is a huge game for them. That is a huge game for them.
I agree.
And it's their big whiteout game. So, again, if an SEC school comes up there and in kind of I won't say middle of pack SEC school, but not a top tier SEC school goes up there and disrupts the whiteout, I mean, that's not good news for them.
The other one I wanted to mention, and it wasn't one I love. This would be one in pencil, but I looked at that Michigan at 7.5. I don't see how they win 8 games. They've got problems all over the place. I mean, the whole offense is going to be brand new. I hated the coaching moves he made up there. He hired a bunch of salesmen, a bunch of recruiters. He's got guys coaching positions they had never coached before. The O-line coach has never coached O-line before. Now, the defense got everybody back, but it's kind of like, is that good news? Because they weren't very good last year on defense. So I'm looking, can I get 5 losses out of Michigan? And they're playing Washington, which will not be an easy game for them. Wisconsin, Nebraska, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State. Do they drop one out of nowhere to, Maryland or somewhere? I mean, I don't think Michigan's going to be very good at all. I think they could be a 6-6 team before they're going to be an 8-4 team to beat me. I'm not saying I love it, but man, I think that's another one like Penn State where they're not very good like people think they should be, like they were maybe. Harbaugh's first couple of years when they're another team, they were taking Ohio State to the wire there. They're not taking them to the wire right now. So I wouldn't make a big deal. I'm not going to put money on it, but boy, I just don't see any way that team goes 8-4. And that's unbelievable that you're saying that. They used to be a perennial 10-2, 11-1, 9-3 deal, and it's not anymore.
Yeah, I think the best way I can kind of put my thoughts on the Big Ten East this year is it looks a lot like the old Big Ten. It looks a lot like the Big Ten West, a bunch of like 7-5 teams. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me in the Big Ten. Once you get past Ohio State, it looks to me like a division that's going to beat the hell out of each other, but not because it's a great division, but just a lot of average. And you're just gonna have this mishmash of whatever behind Ohio State where anything can happen. That's how I look at the Big Ten East this year. But so I wouldn't be taking a lot of overs on that side of the conference, except again, if I get Rutgers at 4, I think I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
All right, Pac-12. This one's fascinating in terms of the conference futures bets. To win the conference, you can get Oregon plus 250. They're the favorite. Washington and USC are at plus 400. Utah's plus 450 and Arizona State is plus 500. That's about as evenly bunched a top 5 in a preseason conference odds that I think I've ever seen. How do you make sense of this one?
It was hard to kind of make sense of things. I really wanted to kind of get behind Arizona State, but they've got NCAA violations, coaches suspended. They got more problems they know what to deal with. So I just stayed away from them. Although I think they're really good. I think they're really well coached, but too many issues there. To me, I looked at USC and man, they got dudes on that team. I mean, they got players there and I know the coaching is just not good enough, but at 8.5, I think they can win 9 or 10 this year. I think the schedule sets up great. I love the QB. I think Slovis is big time, and they got receivers all over the place. I think USC is the best team out there, which is, kind of like being the thinnest girl in the fat girl contest. But I like USC. I think Helton is set up to have a good year this year if he can coach his way out of a paper bag. Utah, great defense. I don't know. This was tough for me. I just got a feeling on this USC team that maybe they popped this year.
Yeah, this is one that's interesting to me because you can get pretty decent value on on this. I do, it's hard for me to trust Helton. I just feel like I feel like he's had talent every year. I don't feel like USC has struggled because of talent. So that worries me. I really like Oregon. I like Mario Cristobal. I like what he's doing there. I like the culture he's building. They're tough. They're not a typical Pac-12. They got dudes on defense.
No, they're tough.
Kayvon Thibodeau, Justin Flo, Noah Sewell. Last year to me was kind of weird. How they kind of that was a roller coaster. I know they lost a few games, didn't look pretty. Weird year with the Pac-12 was as chaotic as the Big Ten was. Penny Sewell opts out.
Yeah.
I think they get back to being what we thought they were heading towards 2 years ago. I really do. I think they're going to. And I think the beauty about them, even though it's plus 250 and they are the favorite, so it's not like incredible odds or anything like that, but the beauty of them is they'll get to measure up against Ohio State and it will have zero impact on, I shouldn't say zero, it'll have minimal impact on their Pac-12 championship aspirations. I mean, I guess a loss to Ohio State could come into a tiebreaker situation or something, but it's not going to derail their conference championship hopes if they lose to Ohio State. So I would probably go Oregon if I had to. I don't know if I love their number. USC, you said, is 8.5. I think Oregon's 9 right now still. I don't know if that's moved at all. I don't love that they've got to go 10-2 necessarily for me to get there. I think, they lose early to Ohio State. You're sweating that one out for a while. But that's kind of how I would look at it. Outside of that, I don't trust any of these teams. Who's going to finish, some of these teams like a Colorado or a Utah or an Arizona State, those teams could win 8 games. Those teams could win 4 games. I have no idea.
No, I agree. And I'll tell you, I like the Cal team. I think they're so well coached. 6.5 is their number. I looked at that thing. Their defense is always really solid there. And they changed offensive coordinators, got a lot of guys back on offense. I think they can win 9 games. Now, like you said, they can also win 5. But I think Cal's got a chance to be really good. The schedule sets up really well. Justin Wilcox can coach. I love the defense. I think they got a chance. So I kind of like Cal. And then I agreed with you at Oregon. If they would have given me Oregon at 8.5, I probably would have taken it over. But do I see Oregon as 10-2 with Ohio State on the schedule? I don't know about that. But I do like what Mario's doing there. I think they get a pass for last year. The Pac-12 was just so screwed up, more screwed up than the Big Ten, if that's possible. I just remember 2 years ago when Ohio State played Wisconsin, Big Ten championship, down 21-7 early. Wisconsin's moving the ball, stopping them, stuff like that. And then, a month later, Oregon played Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. Oregon was by far the more physical team. And you don't see many teams line up with Wisconsin and be the more physical team. So Mario has changed things. And that kind of, this will lead into another show for another day when we do the preview of the Oregon-Ohio State game. I don't really like the Oregon quarterback situation. I do like the fact that I think they can come in and play big boy football with Ohio State and, not let Ohio State line up and run the ball down their throat for 400 yards. So we'll get to that later. But, I looked at Oregon. I like Oregon, but, man, if they'd have given me 8.5, I would have probably taken it over.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to the SEC. On paper, this is Alabama and Georgia. Alabama's minus 165, Georgia's plus 200 to win the conference. Big drop off after that. You get into the next tier. You're talking Texas A&M plus 1,100, Florida plus 1,400, LSU plus 1,600. Anything value wise, or do you just let Alabama? Is Alabama? Is this destined to be Alabama versus Georgia, or is there some value there with like maybe A&M or Florida?
I think Georgia's winning the SEC. I think Alabama's, you hate to say they're in trouble. I mean, that's the dumbest thing you could say. They're very young, very inexperienced, a lot of coaching turnover, all those things that when it happens to Alabama, they go undefeated and get another trophy usually. But, they don't win every year. It just seems like they do. And I don't think this is going to be their year. I just don't. They got some tough road games in there, Auburn, A&M, so you hate to bet against Nick, but I think Georgia's going to win that conference. But I didn't really see anything there that I wanted to put money on between those two. What I do like in the SEC is Florida has got a win total of 9. And I think they're going to be awful. They lost all the playmakers on offense. They were horrendous on defense last year. They get Bama this year in the crossover. They get Georgia in the cocktail party. They got to go 10-2 to take my money. That team, there is no way Florida is going to go 10-2. There's not a chance in heck. They're probably a 7-5 football team. I think there's problems in Gatorland, and I just don't think they're very good. And I think that's total reputation, a 9 win total. I'm not buying that at all. The other one that I couldn't see was Arkansas had a win total of 6. Like, how are they going to win? How's Arkansas going to go 7-5 and take your money? They're playing Texas non-conference. Yeah, good luck with that. In conference, A&M, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, Bama, Missouri. They're going to win 7 of those games. There's no chance. Arkansas under 6 is probably my favorite one of all. I think they're a 3, 4, 5 win team. That schedule's brutal, and they're still Arkansas. They're not Auburn. I also looked at LSU, Mark. I mean, LSU has got nothing but dudes on that team. They're stacked. They got corners. They got D linemen, O linemen. They got guys everywhere. But, man, you just worry about – I think Coach O, he sold his soul to the devil 2 years ago, and he ain't getting that soul back yet. I mean, he got a few more years to go here. I don't know. I mean, I love their talent, but it just seems like it's just not working there after they got their title, and that was it. Now, Coach O turned back into a pumpkin instead of being Bill Belichick. And I couldn't put money on LSU. I just couldn't do it, but they do have talent.
Yeah, there was a theme when I was looking through the win totals for this conference. There was a kind of a common theme, and it just everyone looked too high to me. Florida looked too high. Georgia looks too high with that early season showdown they're going to have with Clemson.
Right.
Alabama's got to run the table, go 12-0, right, or you're losing your money. I like these are all too high. These are all too high. So I finally got to Auburn, which is at 7. And they come out of the gates. They got Akron and Alabama State. They got Georgia State at the end of September. That's 3. They got Arkansas. They got Mississippi State at home. To me, that's 5. So, okay, you got to find 2 more. At Penn State, I think that's a toss-up game. I really think if they beat Penn State, I don't know how they don't get over 7 wins this year.
Right.
Or certainly I don't know how you lose that bet, because if they beat Penn State, they're going to start at least 4-0. Yes, they have to play Georgia crossover. That's at home. A&M on the road. That's not fun, but I'm not sure A&M's going to be better than they were last year. I tend to think they're not going to be. You get Alabama at home, and God, you can throw. That's one game you can kind of throw the records out. I mean, Auburn's beaten them more than you might think they have the last 10, 15 years, given how good Alabama's been. Ole Miss at home. Yeah, that's a tough one. Lane Kiffin, Matt Corral, but Ole Miss doesn't play any defense. Elijah Moore's gone. They can win that one. They can certainly win at South Carolina. I mean, definitely. I think they're going to get there. I think you're at least going to push on Auburn over 7 wins. I think you're at least going to push there. And like I said, if they beat Penn State, I don't know how you lose that bet.
Yeah, I just wish I knew what was going on there.
Yeah.
Because Brian Harsin can coach. He is an amazing coach, but is he the right fit? He doesn't seem like an Auburn guy to me. If they take to him and play for him, they're going to win 8 or 9 games. They're like LSU to me. They got dudes. I mean, Auburn's got talent. They're not recruiting garbage there. So the roster's good enough to win that, more than 7. Do they take to Brian Harsin, who is a heck of a coach? But if he's a fish out of water to them, then it ain't going to work. And the whole thing could just totally fall apart. I wish I knew the answer there if they were buying into Brian Harsin, because he's not like the typical SEC Southern coach at all. He's the opposite of Kirby Smart. So I don't know. But if Auburn is bought into Brian Harsin, they're going to win 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Like I said, I finally got to a total. I was looking at I kind of went down through the favorites. I'm like, nope, hate that. Too high, too high, too high. And you never want, I could always take the unders on those, but taking unders on teams as talented as Alabama and Georgia is risky in and of itself. So I'm just like, I'm going to stay away from that. You may have talked me into Florida.
I think they're terrible.
You may have talked me into that one. I certainly would side with the under.
10-2 team.
Yeah.
10-2 with Bama as a crossover game.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It's hard. It's hard to see right now. It is hard to see that right now. It'll be interesting. I wouldn't touch any of the conference championship stuff. I don't, to me, Alabama, Georgia just feels like that's gonna be the 2. And I don't, at minus 165 juice, why even put money on Alabama to win the SEC? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Even if, again, I like to have fun. I like to enjoy a win. I don't know where the fun of winning a minus 165 SEC championship bet is at. I don't know when that gets exciting and fun. So I'm not going to do it. So that'll do it. I think we went through, we got through all 5.
Yep.
You want to talk about the Heisman odds real quick? I can bring them up here and we can go through the Heisman. First of all, before we even talk about like the odds, is there anyone that you like? Is there a player or a whatever that you like here for the Heisman? Is there something that you?
No, I didn't. It's probably going to go to a quarterback from Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or Oklahoma, like it usually does. I kind of looked at, Iowa State but then Brock Purdy and Breece Hall could kind of split that vote. If I was going to throw something on the dartboard, maybe Bijan Robinson to just go absolutely berserk and have a Najee Harris type season for Texas, where maybe they're not very good. Maybe they go 7-5 or 8-4, but maybe his numbers are just out of sight. I don't know. What do you see Bijan at?
Yeah, he's at plus 2,200. He's 22 to 1.
Yeah. Put $20 on Bijan and pull back $450. And, that probably would be the way I would go. But to take, Bryce Wilson, what's he ever done? Or Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, like never completed a pass in his life yet. I'm not taking those guys 5 to 1 or something like that. Yeah. Spencer Rattler, I just couldn't see it. I think if I was going to throw some pizza money on somebody, it would probably be Bijan Robinson that, Steve Sarkisian just becomes the greatest thing that's ever happened to Bijan. And they get in all those 45-44 games where nobody tackles anyone and his numbers are just off the charts. Yeah,
I'm looking at, first of all, I think, Spencer Rattler is 5.5 to 1. He's the favorite.
Yeah, forget that.
I think that's probably, I think Spencer Rattler has, I don't say a stranglehold before the season even starts, but I think he is ideally positioned to win this thing. He's got a ton of talent around him. He's got a great offensive coach around him. Their defense will be better this year, which could put them in some even better situations as far as touchdown passes and things like that, getting better field position. They're going to play bad defenses. I think he's ideally positioned, but at 5.5 to 1, do I really want to be involved in that? I don't know. I think where it gets maybe a little interesting, you start getting down to like Keaton Slovis is 20 to 1. De'Aaron King is 20 to 1.
De'Aaron King caught my eye.
And so we're talking about they're playing the right position, quarterback. They're playing it at 2, again, these programs are down right now, but they are still premier programs. USC and Miami, they draw eyeballs, they draw attention.
Oh, yeah.
LA, Miami, they'll get some hype around them if we start talking about, is USC back, is Miami back, if we start talking about this week 5 and 6 and Slovis and King are spearheading that, I think that helps them greatly versus like a Matt Corral or a Sam Howell. I really don't even have as good,
But can't win with a team that's 4-8. I mean, the thing with De'Aaron King, he's going to get a primetime game against Bama, early in the year when Nick's, trying to figure things out with that defense. You remember last year, early in the year, Ole Miss demolished that Bama defense, so maybe De'Aaron King does something like that. And I don't think he necessarily has to win that game either, but just if that kid's going up and down the field all day on that Bama team and just turns into the darling of America, and let alone if they win that game and he goes off, shoot, he's the Heisman favorite right then. And his odds are going to go from 25-1 to 4-1 if he beats Bama. So the two I would throw money on. I'd like to know if De'Aaron King is walking and healthy right now. I haven't heard anything about that. If I know he's healthy, I would throw money on him, and I would throw money on Bijan. Those would be the two ways I would go.
Yeah, some interesting picks there in the 20 to 30-1 range.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I'll probably reevaluate this because they keep the odds going throughout the year. So I'm sure we'll reevaluate after a few weeks, and maybe talk about where things stand now and see if anyone got in on a good deal. But we'll wrap it up with that. We're gonna talk some NFL stuff here soon, and we're gonna get into some week 1. Or maybe, I don't know, is it week 1 or is it week 0, I guess, because there's those few games before the official week 1. And so we may, I don't know if we'll combine them all into one episode or we'll figure it out, but we'll get started on some game lines here shortly. But glad to have this back, glad to be doing this again. And we'll catch you next time.